Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to be in the house of the Lord today? Amen. Baruch Hashem. Have you told your neighbor Shabbat Shalom? You turned to them and told them Boker Tov? Not broke your toe, but Boker Tov. And if you have an outline today in your Bible, pen and paper, let me hear some excitement. Someone say Baruch Hashem. Amen. We're looking at the Torah portion called Tetzaveh, and I call this message Signed, Sealed, Delivered. I'm yours. Yeah. We want to say a hearty welcome, Bruchim Habaim, to all of our guests. There's a nice little wax seal, says Abba in there. And today's Torah portion comes from Exodus 27:20, goes all the way up to chapter 30, verse 10. An extra reading for Parashat Zachor, an extra reading throughout the year, according to the Jewish calendar, is Deuteronomy 25:17 through 19, as a maftir, as a closing Torah read. Yehezkiel, which is Ezekiel 43:10 to 27, we heard this morning. And then Messianic Jews, Hebrews 10 through 16, as our New Covenant read. Speaks again of the altar and how the sacrifices were burned outside the city, just like Yeshua became a sin offering outside the temple, or in what's known as Golgotha, the place of the skull, but still in the city of Jerusalem. So we're going to start with the traditional beginning of the read, Exodus. If you can turn your Bibles to Exodus 27:20. I want to get through this material today and highlight some things that we've talked about in previous years, but really focus on today the idea of being signed or sealed as a letter. Especially the kind that was sealed by a signet ring. And you'll learn a lot of good stuff today. Exodus 27:20 says, "You are to order the people of Israel to bring you pure olive oil, pounded olives for light, and to keep a lamp burning continually." That's in Hebrew, ner tamid. Aharon, or Aaron, and his sons are to put it in the tent of meeting, the Ohel Moed, a tent of meeting or appointment, the tabernacle. Outside the curtain in front of the testimony. The testimony is actually the ark that contains the testimony of the two tablets. As you see the Ten Commandments above our Aron HaKodesh, there was the Ten Commandments in the Aron HaKodesh. And this is a permanent regulation, a hukat olam, a permanent decree or regulation throughout all your generations of the people of Israel. Let's jump right into the 28th chapter. Verse 1 says, "You are to summon your brother Aharon," that's Aaron the high priest, "his sons to come from among the people of Israel to you, so that they can serve me as Kohanim, or priests." They had to be from the tribe of Levi, and they had to be from one of the sons of Aaron. His sons, it says here, Aaron, Aharon, and his sons are Nadav, Avihu, Eleazar, and Itamar. "You are to make for your brother Aharon garments set apart, or holy garments, Bigdei HaKodesh, for serving God," literally ministering as a priest. And it says for dignity, literally lekavod, and that's for glory, and for splendor. Tifaret is glory or beauty, splendor. Verse 4 says the garments, these holy garments, these garments that are for glory and they're for splendor or beauty, they are to make these a breastplate, a ritual vest, a robe, a checkered tunic, a turban, which is the head covering, and a sash. They are to make holy garments for your brother Aharon and his sons, so that he can serve me in the office of the Kohen or the priest. And they are to use these elements. What are they? Blue, purple, scarlet, and fine scarlet yarn and fine linen. Here we have a picture of the priest, the high priest. He's no longer wearing all the beautiful colors, only wearing white, because on the Day of Atonement, before he goes beyond that veil, he actually has to look like every priest. He has to become one with the priesthood. There can't be different levels. Everyone is the same when it comes to the Day of Atonement. We've all sinned, come short of the glory. Amen? And so he takes off his glorious garments and puts on just white, speaking of purification. Okay? So here are the four colors. The blue is a picture of heaven, the rabbis say. Speaks of deity, in God in the highest. Very similar to one of the faces of the cherubim angels, the eagle, which flies in the heavens. God calls himself an eagle. So we see that's one of the faces that have been associated with the four Gospels. the face of the lion as one of the faces of the 4 cherubim angels mentioned in Ezekiel 1 and Revelation 4 and 5. So we got the color blue, which speaks of heaven. We have, or deity. We have the color purple, like a royal robe, which speaks of royalty, the kingly robe. We have the color of red, which speaks of the color of blood, sacrifice or servility, meaning to serve. And it's funny, this is exactly all the concepts of the priesthood also. They represented heaven. They wore the purple representing that they were a royal priesthood. And they also had blood, the sacrifice. And then, of course, underneath all of it was the fine white linen. White linen was perfection or purity, holiness. So, verse 6 says, they are to make the ritual vest of gold of blue, purple, scarlet, and yarn, and of finely woven linen. Notice these 4 colors coming together to make the ritual vest, or what we call the breastplate, the choshen. The choshen, or the breastplate, had the stones for the 12 tribes of Israel placed in each one. It says they're crafted by a skilled artisan, which literally in Hebrew, it's saying that they're crafted by a chokmei lev, a wise-hearted artisan. Attached in its front and back edges are to be 2 shoulder pieces that can be fastened together. Verse 8 goes on to say, some of these are not on your outline, but it goes on to say, its decorated belt is to be of the same workmanship and materials. So here you have, again, the gold, the blue, the purple, the scarlet yarn, and the finely woven or white linen. Watch this. Verse 9. Take 2 onyx stones. How many of you have seen an onyx stone before? Yeah, beautiful. Take 2 onyx stone. Really, we're guessing on what that stone is because I believe it's shosham is the Hebrew word, but it's questionable what some of these stones are. But in English, we've translated them onyx. It says, on these onyx stones you are to engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel. Have you ever seen a ring with a name engraven on the actual stone? Or something engraven on the image? Or maybe you've seen something crafted where on just the gold or the silver or whatever element it's made out of, you have a signet ring or an image of maybe the family crest or some identification of a certain people group or a name or a family name. These are all the things that are related in this passage. That you're to make these onyx stones just like you would a piece of jewelry. Okay? It goes on to say, you are to engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel. This could be the tradition of where people get birthstones from. Because it goes on to say, 6 of their names, 1 on one stone, and 6 remaining names on the other. So you got 6 names on one stone on one shoulder, 6 on the other, in the order of their what? Birth. So this is where some people have gotten the kind of the tradition of having a birthstone. Again, it's not really directly from the Bible, but there's a concept that goes back to ancient peoples where they attributed certain things. Obviously, when you get into birthstones, you start getting a little bit into another culture that is not necessarily biblical. And you got to be careful when people start telling you you're born at this time, this is what's going to happen to your life, and start predicting things because it starts getting into the horoscope. So you got to be a little cautious that someone else is not telling you what God intended for your life to be.
That's right.
And that's the principle in general. No one should tell you what God intended for your life except God himself.
That's right.
They can advise you, they can give you counsel of what God has done in their life, but they can't tell you what to do in your life. You have to walk your own walk by faith. Halakha is the walk that each one of us have to walk as we walk before God, and even in a pagan society that doesn't believe in God or has many gods. So, it goes on to tell us that it's in their birth order. As verse 11 says, an engraver should engrave the names of the sons of Israel on 2 stones, that he will engrave a seal. He will do what? Engrave a seal. Very important word, seal. It says, mount the stones in gold settings. Sounds like jewelry to me. And put the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the vest as stones calling to mind the sons of Israel. Now watch this. It's funny how Jewish people have been very good at jewelry. And some names like diamond or silverman, goldman, these are all names of jewelers. And even the word stein, referring to stone, can refer to gems found in a mountainous area, like Steinberg, stones found in a mountain. So these could be miners of jewelry or jewels, and they could be turned into jewelry. And it's amazing that God gave a lot of experience on how to become good jewelers back in the wilderness. So you never know what your wilderness is going to bring. It could bring you a lot of money one day. Because the Jewish people have always been blessed with a love for the arts. A love for not only entertainment, but the artifacts and beautiful paintings. And Hitler himself stole much of the beautiful artwork of the Jewish people during the time of the Holocaust. Because he knew of their wealth and their money. They were great lenders and never borrowers, as the scripture taught. And it's funny how Germany saw that and said, we want some of that wealth. They were even forced to have to lend out money under duress, under a force or pressure. So you can see that there's a great experience of being jewelers here. Aharon or Aaron is to carry their names before Adonai on his two shoulders as a reminder. It reminds me of carrying on the shoulders of the priests the Ark of the Covenant, which is the jewel of all jewels. The jewel of all jewels. I was watching a video about the Temple Institute, and they were talking about how when it was first mentioned about the menorah that was refurbished or made for the next temple, it talked about it being at that time $2 million. And I'm thinking, oh, it's worth much more than that. When you've got one piece of hammered gold, that's a lot of money. And so all of the vessels inside the holy place and holy of holies, most of them were made of gold. Other metals were silver that were used, and then copper on the outer court. So we see here that it's to be a reminder of the names of the tribes of Israel. When he went into the holy place and into the holy of holies, he was reminded by wearing the weight of it on his heart. He was reminded when he wore the weight of it on his shoulders. Who's on your heart? What are you carrying on your shoulders that reminds you the weight and the burden of what you have to bear, not only for yourself, but your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community, your nation, your world? What weight are you carrying? What ark are you carrying? Are you lifting up Yeshua? Because when he's lifted up, he will draw all men to him. All eyes were on the ark as it traveled. Moses would say, "Arise, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered." Do you know you can carry your weight in a way that makes your enemies scatter? Amen. You can carry the weight of his glory in such a way that causes all eyes to look upon the God that you serve. Amen. You can carry your weight, your problems, your situations in such a way that it doesn't burden you. But as the rabbis have said, it's almost like the ark itself had such a glory that it lifted them off the ground and carried them. Wow. Beautiful picture of what God does in our personal life. Now, look at chapter 20. Oh, that should say 28, by the way. That's I typed in the wrong word. Not 26, but 28. I want to look at the same verse, and I want to compare it in the New King James from the Complete Jewish Bible. When it said engrave a seal, this version says engravings of a signet. Engravings of a signet. It says these are memorial stones, meaning you're going to remember the tribes of Israel when you wear them. You can never forget who he was doing the work for. Chapter 28, verse 20, the latter part of it says, they shall be set in gold settings. Verse 21 says, it says, and the stone shall be... There we go. And it says, and the 21 says, and the stones shall have the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a what? Signet. A signet. What's a signet? We'll find out. Each one with its own name, and they shall be according to the 12 tribes. So imagine, it's like having a whole jewelry box on your chest with all these names in it. Now, we learned last year about the 25 Hebrew letters, spelling out the 6 names on one side, 6 on the other. 25 and 25 make 50. Jubilee. It wasn't hard to carry this, because when they're equally balanced, when your weights, when your issues, when your problems are equally balanced, your yoke is easy, your burden is light, because they were properly balanced. 6 names on each side or each shoulder, 25 letters each, showing a perfect balance on these onyx stones called Avnei Shosham. This is a beautiful picture of 50 being a jubilee that sets the captive free. As long as he bore the weight of Israel on his shoulders, Israel was free from sin, from enemies, from problems. Just like the priests, when they would bear the ark, arise, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered. Life is not hard if you carry your weight correctly. Yeah, you know I've been working out at 5 in the morning most days. And I have to learn to carry my weight correctly. Let me tell you, the day that I do a deadlift improperly is the day that I hurt for about a week. See, when I carry correctly, I hurt for half a day. A little pain, and then, I stretch it out and it goes away. But when I carry my weight incorrectly at the gym, I feel that I've been using too much of my back and not enough of my legs for support and squatting down to pick up the weight. Instead, I'm bending over, which causes me to be in more pain than I should be. I can bear the weight if I do it properly. How many weights in life of worry and situations are we bearing improperly? Because we're not carrying the weight correctly. It's like touching the ark on an ox cart that was never meant to carry the ark of the covenant or the glory of God, instead of carrying it on the shoulders of priests in equal balance, so no one dips without the other one regulating the dip. Do you know when you're working together in a team and somebody dips, guess what? You dip too, because you're balancing the ark. You're balancing the glory of God, the weight of His glory, not the weight of your burdens. These garments were for glory, not for burdens. These garments were for beauty, not for headaches. Whatever you're carrying in life, if it's too much for you, admit it. And take on a weight of Messiah, which will be easily borne upon your shoulders. Rashi talks a little bit about this when he references Genesis 38:17. Rashi is a French Jewish commentator of the Torah. He's a rabbi, and he quoted verse 17. And he said, I will send a young goat from the flock. So she said, Tamar said, will you give me a pledge till you send it? Speaking to Judah, who was really her father-in-law. She was hiding out because her husband had died, and all of Judah's other sons had died. Judah said, what pledge shall I give you? What pledge? The Hebrew word there for pledge is arabon. And it says, what pledge or arabon shall I give you? So she said, your signet, chotam, and your cord, patil, and your staff that is in your hand. Then he gave them to her and went in to her, and she conceived by him. Scandalous, right? So she arose and went away and laid aside her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. Until she was pregnant, nobody knew she had slept with her father-in-law. If you look at what Rashi said, your signet, chotam, I have this backwards. Excuse me, that should be ring. A ring. The chotam is a ring, a signet ring. And the cord is a string used to suspend a signet ring upon it. So the chotam is the ring, and the patil is a cord that's used to hang the ring. Sometimes instead of wearing the ring, they put it around their neck. So they would always have it to roll or to punch into a piece of clay, or sometimes wax in later generations. Genesis 28:24 mentions this signet also, where it says, and it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry. So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. How self-righteous, right? When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, please determine whose these are. The signet, the cord, and the staff. Busted, got me, right? Think about it. He didn't even realize. It was kind of like Jacob sleeping with Leah when he was really thought he was marrying Rachel, and he didn't know till later that, wrong girl, right? A little bit of a mashugana mix-up there. So it shows up again, the word signet, in reference to Joseph. In Genesis 41:41 it says, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring off. What did he take? His signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried out before him, bow the knee. So he set him over all the land of Egypt. Wow, the setup for Passover, right? This word shows up again in Exodus 28. In our teaching today, in verse 36 it says, and you shall make a plate of pure gold and engrave on it, like the engravings of a signet, holiness unto the Lord. How interesting. When Aaron would minister, he had to wear this plate that said holiness to the Lord, and it was like the engravings of a signet ring. Okay? This is the look of the crown that's been remade. It's kind of a little dark to see, but imagine this is really bright gold. This is called tzitz. Tzitz. Or if you were in Ashkenazi, it'd be tzitz. Tzitzits, like the tassels. So these tassels are called tzitzi. The word means an ornament, an adorning. So this was to be an ornament upon the head of the priest that said, Kadosh Ladonai, holiness unto the Lord. So this crowning was to be like the engraving of a signet, meaning the artwork had to be like an engraving of a signet ring. So here you have the golden breastplate that had this engraving like a signet. You had also the golden crown, which had the engraving like a signet. And the breastplate had the names of the tribe of Israel on his breast or on his chest, in the order of birth, three columns and 4 rows of stones. Now, here's an example of this. In Exodus 28:36, it says the engravings of a signet. Here is a modern signet ring for King David. I want one of these. I've always wanted that. And this is a Jewish jeweler that made this. It is a Star of David ring, or it is of the Magen David, which tells you the real meaning for the star. It was the shield of David. It was probably put on the shields of Israel, and it was used as a shield in the sense of, it was put on emblems that represented kind of like the fact that God was protecting them. Now, again, you can go into mysticism, and this can get turned into some kind of amulet to ward off evil spirits. That doesn't mean it was the original intent of the name. Okay? This is actually what we call kind of like a monogram, because this is really David's name, because the letter Dalet, or the last D or Dalet of his name, David, D-V-D, would have actually been 2 triangles, and the Vav, making David, is a hook. If you hook 2 triangles together, this is the image you get for a short representation of his name. And it's found in a picture that I took in Israel in the city of David. You see overhead in Paleo-Hebrew King David, you see a triangle, you see there's the Vav and another triangle. So if you hook 2 triangles together, like the Greek delta, which came from Dalet, the delta is a triangle. Hook 2 triangles together, you get Star of David. Everybody see that? So here's the name David, here's city. So it's a city of David in Hebrew. But it's in Paleo-Hebrew, which you can see they look like little triangles. So David's name is seen here. When you put the 2 together, you got the lion, the tribe of Judah, was the root of David. Now, that's not really what I want to talk to you about so much. But I do want to give you some background information that's probably on the back of your outline on the seal and the signet ring. The seal is a very ancient invention. Judah's signet and Pharaoh's signet ring are mentioned in Genesis 38:18 and Genesis 41:42. We just read them. Signets of Egyptian kings have been found, which are referred to about 2000 BC. Sennacherib's signet and impression of Sargon's are still extant. There can be no doubt that in the East, from a very remote antiquity, kings had seals and appended them to all documents which they set forth under their authority. You can compare Esther 3:12, Esther 8:8, Daniel 6:17. The Hebrew mode of sealing seems to have been by attaching a lump of clay to a document and impressing the seal thereupon, as mentioned in Job 38:14. We'll look at it in a second. First, I want to look at Numbers 31:50 that says, "Therefore we have brought an offering to the Lord." Look what Israel brought. "And every man found ornaments of what? Gold. What else? Armlets. What else? Bracelets. What else? Signet rings." Did Israel have signet rings? Everybody had signet rings. This is common custom for all the Jewish people to have signet rings. What were they used for? Let's finally look at Eov or Job 38:13 that the commentary told us about. Have you commanded the morning since your days began? Speaking of Job. And caused the dawn to know its place? There's that questioning the Lord does, that whole Jewish questioning thing, right? That it might take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked should be shaken out of it? Look at the statement here, though. It takes on form like what? Clay under a what? Seal. And stands out like a garment. So just like a beautiful garment would stand out, when you saw the crest or the monogram or the name on a ring which was engraved on a jewel, on a piece of jewelry, it stood out. It represented who they were. It was an identifier, just like the tzitzit identified the Jew, and just like the garment, the four-corner garment identified the Jew, just like the head covering identified the Jew. And the high priest was identified by the beauty of the engraving of the signet ring. You following me so far? Now, here's an image, very ancient image, found in Israel of one of the clay images or seals made from a signet ring. This was found in Israel. Showing that the ancient custom, before there was ever wax seals, it was originally clay seals. Okay? Now, it goes on. In 1 Kings 21:7, I don't think this one's on your outline, but notice this authority connected to the ring. Look at this. 1 Kings 21:7. Then Jezebel. Who's Jezebel? She's like Haman. Yeah, getting ready for Purim, aren't you? Queen Esther, right? Yay! It says, Jezebel, his wife, said to him, You now exercise authority over Israel. Arise, eat food, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth and the Jezreelite. And she wrote what? Letters in Ahab, King Ahab's name. How in the world did she have the power to use his name? She's the wife, but that didn't equal the power of the king. Even Esther, Queen Esther, would not go before the king until the right appointed time. Now, sometimes she broke the ethical code. She just stormed into his courtroom and said, "Hey, honey, we need to talk." Babe, I'm at work. Can you just wait? You know, how many of you had your wife show up to your job? You're in trouble when your wife shows up at the job. That means she's already called, she's texted, she said, forget email, he's not going to read that. But now she has to show up at your job? This was very dangerous, but she did not die. When the custom was, she would have been beheaded. Or at least put out of the kingdom. But it says here, she wrote letters in Ahab's name. Watch this. It says, it was sealed, or she sealed them with his seal. Wait a minute. No wonder her authority was established, because she wrote a letter and then put his signet ring on it and sealed the document so that it came from him. Anyone who reads it knows that they see the image of the seal of King Ahab, and it stands as full authority. Because whoever seal you're under, that's the authority you're under. Get ready, get ready, get ready. I think we need to buckle up. You need to click it or ticket. I mean, yeah, it's dangerous ground right now. Everybody put your seatbelt on. Let me hear it. All right, all right. We're going up in altitude now. We're going to go higher. Watch this. Daniel, number 6, Daniel 6, verse 16 says, So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. Then a stone was brought and laid at the mouth of the den, the lion's den. And the king, watch this, sealed it with his own what? Signet ring, and with the signets of his lord. They all put their ring in there. Like, anybody breaks this seal, you're in trouble. Okay? That the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Meaning, we're putting him in the lion's den. Nobody's going to come let him out and say, hey, I think you're done. You know, time served. No, no. The signet ring is in there. So the king took his ring, and all his leaders, his lords, took their rings, and they placed it into the clay. And when the clay hardened up, this was a permanent seal. They could not be broken by anyone unless they had the authority of the king himself. You follow me? Wait a minute. This is powerful. Because This seal is just like the sealed document found in Daniel chapter 12, same book, verse 1. And when the time comes, Michael, or Michael, the great prince, this is Michael the archangel, who champions your people, meaning wars, who defends your people, Israel, will stand up, and there will be a time of duress unparalleled between the time they became a nation and that moment at that time. Your people will be delivered, everyone whose name is found written where?
In the book.
In the book. Wait a minute, the Jewish people are written in the book. It's so funny because my whole life I was told the Jewish people were not written in the book. Catch that? The Bible says that Israel's name is written in the book. It goes on to say in verse 2, many of those sleeping in the dust, this is Jewish prayer now, you keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awaken, meaning resurrect, some to everlasting life, and of course some to everlasting shame. There's no immediate entrance into heaven just because you're Jewish. But it says, and abhorrence, and those who can discern will shine like the brightness of the heavens dome, and those who turn many to righteousness are shining like the stars forever and ever. Look at verse 4. But you, Daniel, keep these words secret and do what? Seal up the books until the time of the end. Many will rush here and there as knowledge increases. Do you know when you read the book of Revelation and you read about the 7 seals? This is a document of probably 7 pieces of parchment that keep rolled together, and there's each time you seal it is a certain section that can't be opened unless that seal is broken, or a continuous seal that you can keep resealing it with these 7 seals. In fact, a seal is a device for making an impression in wax, clay, paper, or some other medium, including an embossment on paper, as is also the impression thus made. The original purpose was to authenticate a what? A document, like the Torah, right? Or some other written document of a king, something that is on parchment. A wrapper for one such as a modern envelope, or the cover of a container or package holding valuables or other objects. Seals were used in the earliest civilizations and are of considerable importance in archaeology and art history, and in ancient Mesopotamia, carved or engraved cylinder seals, those are round cylinders you rolled, in stone or other materials were used. So if they didn't use a ring, they used a round cylinder, and when you rolled it, it literally rolled out a signature. Egyptian ones rolled out hieroglyphics. And that would be the king's name, and you knew that was the king. So he'd literally do like what we do with the old credit card machines. It'd create an image. They'd just roll it, and his signature would be done. And he would sometimes wear it around his neck on that cord. Like when she says, can you give me your cord and your signet? They'd wear it around their neck. Especially when you're working, you don't want rings on. You put it around your neck to hold on to it. Okay, like some people do with jewelry today. Put a ring around their neck. It goes on to say, these could be rolled along to create an impression on the clay, which could be repeated indefinitely and used as labels on consignments of trade goods or for other purposes. They are normally hollow, and it is presumed that they were worn on a string or a chain where? Around the neck. Many have only images. Pharaoh gave him a chain to wear, a ring to wear, and a chain to wear. Possibly when he needed to take it off, he could wear it around his neck so that he would never lose it, because that's his signature. It's like always walking around with a pen, so you're ready to sign it at any moment. If I'm going to make you second command, I need to give you a chain so that even when you want to take it off to cleanse yourself, at least put it around the chain around your neck, because you can't lose this. If you lose this, you have no authority. Jezebel, if you don't have the king's signet ring, your letters are no good. They're frauds. But as long as the ring's in it, people would see it as King Ahab's authority, right? Wow, you learning something yet? Good stuff, right? Good topic. Now, watch this. It says, many have only images, often very finely carved, and no writings, while others have both. From ancient Egyptian seals in the form of signet rings, including some of the names of the kings, have been found. These tend to show only names in hieroglyphics. There is a direct line of descent from the seals used in the ancient world to those used in medieval and post-medieval Europe, and so to those used in legal context in the Western world to the present day. Seals were historically most often impressed in sealing wax, often simply described as wax. In the Middle Ages, this generally comprised a compound of about 2/3 beeswax to 1/3 of some kind of resin, but in the post-medieval period, the resin and other ingredients came to dominate. Signet rings have a flat bezel, usually wider than the rest of the hoop, which is decorated normally in intaglio, so that it will leave a raised relief impressed on the design when the ring is pressed onto soft sealing wax or some similar material. They have been used since ancient times as the personal seal of an individual. In recent times, the design is generally a coat of arms made by engraving, either in metal or engraved gems, generally semi-precious. Agate is a frequent material, especially carnelian or banded agate like sardonyx. The banding make the impression contrast with the ground. Most smaller classical engraved gems were probably originally worn as a signet ring or as seals on a necklace. Metal signet rings can also be cast. They may be cheaper but yield a weaker material. The wearing of a signet ring, from the Latin signum, meaning sign, goes back to ancient Egypt. So when the Bible talks about signs, it kind of connects to this concept of the signet ring. Although less common today, it says, and very rarely actually used for their intended purpose as seals, signet rings are still worn, especially among the Armigerous, I don't know, in European and some other cultures, because it is used to attest the authority of its bearer. The king also has seen it. The ring has also been seen as a symbol of power, with which one explanation for its inclusion in the regalia of certain monarchies. So wait a minute. In reading all that background, when you read Ephesians 1:13, by the way, I put a whole Hebraic messianic synopsis of Ephesians on our website. So you on the front page, you'll click, you'll see a messianic synopsis of Ephesians. This is taken from my synopsis I wrote. So I took about every 3 verses and gave you a synopsis of the Hebrew meanings of a very Greek understood book. But it's really very Jewish. So it goes on to say, Paul the Apostle, Rav Shaul says, Ephesians 1:13, you too have heard the word of truth, Devar Emet, the gospel of your salvation. When you believed in Messiah, you were what? Sealed with the promise of the Holy Spirit. All of a sudden, the person of that day knew exactly what he was referring to. Messiah's signet ring, like David's signet ring, that Star of David, was impressed into you. You've taken on his image. You've taken on his image. You're conformed to the image of his son. You take on his image. Yeshua is the express image of the Father. That means he's like the Father taking his signet ring and pressing it into flesh so that we could see it in the earth. The very Torah embodied in flesh. He's the express image. That literally goes back to the idea of sealing. Hebrews 1:1-3. He's the express image of the Father. This adds new meaning to what it means to be in the image of God. Amen. Wow. So watch this. It goes on to say, you were sealed with the promised Holy Spirit, who is the guarantee. Wait a minute. Recognize that word? In Greek, they have arabon. Arabon is Hebrew. It's not Greek. They didn't know what to do with it, so they did exactly what they did with Abba. Throw it in the Greek text, and then spell it with Greek letters. So you have a Hebrew word, but you just spelled it, transliterated it with Greek letters, and we get the word arabon. It means nothing. Strong's Concordance says it's Semitic. It goes back to the Hebrew Chaldean dictionary. The word guarantee is in this text, arabon, of our inheritance until God redeems his own possession for his praise and glory. That means he owns whatever his seal is on. Watch this. The Greek word, this is a fun one. I've been learning from my Greek friend, Sula. Not Tula, like in my Big Fat Greek Wedding, but Sula. I told her I'd give her a shout out. The word is sfargiso. Sfargiso. And it comes from sfargis. It means a seal. Properly to seal or affix with a signet ring or other instrument to stamp, a roller or seal, to attest ownership, authorizing or validating what is sealed. If we've been sealed, we've been validated. We've been authorized. We represent him. We have his seal. Jezebel had the seal of King Ahab. We have the seal of Messiah. We've been sealed by the Holy Spirit. We have his authorization. We belong to him. It signifies ownership. Wow. And the full security carried by the backing and full authority of the owner. Sealing in the ancient world served as a legal signature, which guaranteed the promise. Wait a minute. You've been sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. It says the promise or contents of what was sealed, like a wedding certificate, a ketubah in Hebrew. Now this is part of my commentary that you can get online. The next thing I have for my commentary is guarantee is arabon in Greek, an installment, a deposit, a down payment in Greek, which guarantees the balance of the full purchase price. A down payment pledge is the irregular term in biblical times for earnest money or advance payment that guarantees the rest will be given. The Greek word arabon is a borrowed word from the Hebrew language arabon. Just use Hebrew letters. Found first in the passages like Genesis 38:17. And he said, I will send a kid from the flock. Now think about this. He wanted to send a kid from the flock as a pledge, but she said, you will give me a pledge till you send it. And he said, what pledge? What arabon shall I give you? She says, well, just give me your signet. And your cord, or some say a bracelet, something to tie the ring to. And your staff that is in your hand. And he gave it to her and came into her, and she conceived by him. This word not only had the sense of a pledge, but it spoke of the earnest money that was put down for the purchase of the property. This is why the ketubah was used when they couldn't pay. They would say, here's a document saying I'll pay. I'll take care of her. The marriage certificate, a wedding certificate that we use today, is a down payment. You're saying, I'm going to take care of this girl when you sign it, man. I'm going to take care of her. You would usually pay it to the father, the bride. Say, hey, I can take care of your girl. This is your daughter, but I just want you to know. Here's some money showing that I can take care of her. If you leave her, he used that money to take care of her. Wow, that's what the Holy Spirit is to us. He's the down payment of things to come. Whatever we need is the down payment to take care of us until he comes back for his prized possession. Oh boy, I love this study this week. Watch this, watch this. Arabon is also used in modern Greek as when a young man falls in love with a young woman today in modern Greece. And he wants to give her an engagement ring. He gives her an arabon. It's the word for an engagement ring in modern Greek. It's funny, when you think about these signet rings, Yeshua also used it not only for situations like an engagement, but how about a father and a son? In Luke 5:22, but the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe, put it on him, put a signet ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, he's alive again, he was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. See, when God found you, you didn't find God, God found you. He wasn't lost, you were. That's right. And all of heaven rejoiced and wanted to throw a party, according to Luke 15. The lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost son. He says, put his ring back on. Put the symbol that represents that he has my stamp of approval. He's my son, he gets my ring. This is a ring that the Father gives the Son. You wear it. The Father in heaven gave Yeshua his ring of approval. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. What was that ring of approval? When the Spirit came upon him like a dove, and rested. And the father says, this is my son. I approve of him. That when the son from the pig's pen was coming back home in Luke chapter 15, he says, see that boy over there? That's my son. Get his robe, kill the fatted calf, and put his ring back on his finger. He's approved of me. He will not be a servant in my house. He will be the son over my house. Yeshua is not just the servant of the house, the servant of Israel. He is the son of the house. Amen? And he that the son sets free is free indeed. My son was gone. He was dead to me. But now he's alive. Put his signet ring on. Man, do you understand the salvation that you have received? You won't understand it until you understand. Remember Job that talked about the clay seal? Remember Daniel, that the king put his ring in a clay seal over a lion's den? How about Yeshua? In Matthew 27:64, therefore command the tomb to be made secure. I never saw this before. Until the third day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say to the people, he is risen from the dead. So the last deception will be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, you have a guard, go your way, make it secure, as you know how. So they went and made the tomb secure, sealing the stone. They took their signet ring, received to them by Pharaoh, giving them authority over Pharaoh's kingdom, and they put their seal into clay to seal the tomb like Daniel was in the lion's den, and if it was broken, they had hell to pay from Rome itself, because now the soldiers could put you to death or imprison you till you wait death if you had broken Caesar's seal. Yes. Let me tell you, Yeshua the Messiah wasn't resurrected just to break Caesar's seal, but break hell's seal. Whatever seal of the enemy has been trying to be pressed upon your life, he says, I have broken the seal. Now I've put my seal upon you. My seal. Can you imagine when you're reading that text, you never... How many actually saw that before? Let me see. I can't put my hand up. I never saw that before. I never saw that the seal was a king's signet ring. Or someone in the authority under the king of Rome. I never saw that before. But I'll tell you what I do see. I see what's over that tombstone now. I see the door that says in Israel, he is what? Risen. You see, sealing the stone is referring to the sepulchre that was made secure by fixing a large stone to the entrance in such a way that it could not be removed without detection. It was sealed. In that way, this was done, and it cannot now be certainly told. Excuse me. It was sealed. In what way this was done cannot be, cannot now be certainly told. I mean, we don't know the details how they did it. We know they did it. We don't know how the procedure was done. The cave in which Daniel was cast was fastened in the same manner and sealed with the king's signet, Daniel 6:17. Perhaps by fastening the stone in its place with cords and bringing them together, uniting them with wax, or really in those days it would have been clay, and impressing on that the seal of the king. In this way, letters and books were anciently sealed, just like Daniel was told, seal up the book. Possibly on the sepulchre of Yeshua was impressed in this manner the seal of Pilate, the seal of office, making it doubly secure. Or it may be that the stone was fitted into the tomb with clay or cement, and on that was impressed the seal of Pilate, because the soldiers would have had his seal to be in his authority. Okay, and probably would have had a picture of him on it. I would have loved to see his face crack. You see, instead of having the seal of Pilate, we have the name of the Father sealing us. Hallelujah. We have the name of the Father sealing us. And we have to understand that that name of the Father is sealed in us, as it says in Revelation 5:1. And I saw in the right hand of him as I saw in the right hand of him who sat upon the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with what? 7 seals. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, like that signet ring we looked at, has triumphed, and he's able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Revelation 5:5. This is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And this seal is not just on a document. Watch this. In the midst of unsealing the seals, between seal 6 and seal 7, is a description of the seal on his people. In Revelation 7:1 it says, after these things I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, and the wind should not blow on the earth or the sea or any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God.
Praise the Lord.
Elohim Chai, the living God. Verse 2, the latter part says, and he cried with a loud voice in the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, and saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. What is that? Verse 4 says, and I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 of all the tribes of Israel were sealed. Of the tribe of Judah, 12,000 were sealed. And it goes on. Notice that Judah, from which the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Yeshua himself, comes from. Judah is first. Judah is the seal of the king. Judah is the king of Israel. He is the tribe by which all the kings of Israel come. And therefore, the Star of David, of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, of King David himself, that was the image used throughout Israel's kingdom for the Davidic dynasty. Yeah, I said it. Not Duck Dynasty, the Davidic dynasty of the seal of God. He says, well, I have to seal Judah first then, because Judah is the one that carries the seal. And only the Lion of the tribe of Judah can unloose the seal. Because when a document is sealed by a king, only the king in which the letter is sent to can unseal it. So, seal Judah first. The people of the tribe of Judah. 12,000 times 12 is 144,000. As I close, watch this. I'm done. Revelation 14. I don't even want to end this. I love it so much. Revelation 14:1. Then I looked, and there was the Lamb, standing on Mount Zion, Sion. And with him were what? 144,000. Not JWs.
That's right.
Not the church.
That's right.
144,000, 12,000 from each one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Very specific. They are said to have the seal of the name of their father written on their foreheads. Watch this. Who had his name and his father's name, or actually, it says they have Yeshua's name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Can you imagine having both Yeshua, but in the name Yeshua is also the name of the Father? Hallelujah. It says it's written on their foreheads, and it says, wait a minute, I don't think you're getting this. On the forehead of the high priest was Yud-He Vav-He, the name of God. Hashem is Kadosh. Kadosh, Kadosh. And it said, Kadosh Ladonai. Kadosh Lashem. Kadosh Yud-He Vav-He. The name the Father gave the Son, with its authority, with its scepter, with its signet, with its kingdom. That authority given to the Son will at the end of time give back to the Father, that God may get all the glory. 1 Corinthians 15. Watch this. Watch this. Oh man, I love this. I want to leave this, but I gotta let you go. And you just stay all day. Come on. He says, watch this. Oh man, this is good. Verse 2. I heard a sound from heaven, like the sound of rushing waters and like the sound of pealing thunder. And a sound heard was also like the sound of harpists playing their harps. What did Levites play? Harps. What did King David play also? Harp. He was a psalmist and wrote the songs for Israel's priests to sing. Verse 3. They were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living beings and the elders. 24, which represents the number of the priesthood. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been ransomed, who had been sealed, who had been delivered. Signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Here I am, Yeshua. Who have been ransomed from the world. These are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. He's relating it to the purity of the priesthood. In verse 4 it says, they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been ransomed. They've been delivered from among humanity as first fruits for God and the Lamb. And on their lips no lie was found. They were without defect. I close with this last verse and last 3 points for you to fill in. 2 Corinthians 1:21 says, moreover, it is God who set both us and you in firm union with the Messiah, the Anointed One. He has anointed us, just like he did the priesthood, and put his seal, his sargis, or his hotam, his signet on us, and given us his Spirit. Where? In our hearts. As a what? As a guarantee. In Greek or Hebrew, it's a arabon, for the future. Don't you understand? Point number 1. We're sealed with the Holy Spirit over our hearts, like a breastplate of the high priest that was engraved like a signet. The first thing that they were told, make sure that you engrave the breastplate of the priest, the high priest, like a signet, like a seal. The second thing they were commanded, remember, was a crown. Because we are sealed with the Holy Spirit where? Over our minds, like a golden crown of the high priest with the engravings of a signet. And last, just like Daniel was told, seal up the book, Hashem's covenant is like a document sealed, but through the anointing, his word is revealed. You see, the document sealed is the word revealed. Today we have taken the old, we've taken the new. We've taken the Hebrew, we've taken the Greek. We've taken it and brought it all together, because what was once sealed has now been revealed. It's time to take the seal off that keeps it concealed, and take it off that it can be revealed. Today the revelation is, you are sealed with the Holy Spirit. Where? Your hearts and your minds in Messiah Yeshua. Do you receive in this message today? Do you understand you're like a sealed letter from the apostles of Messiah, like the covenant? Would you stand to your feet today? I want to bless you with Numbers 6:24-26. I hope you're buzzing all day. I said I hope you're buzzing all day to look up these verses. That you are the signet, you are the seal. You have been signed, you've been sealed, and like Israel, you've been delivered. Amen. Stretch your hands for the blessing today. As the priest would make the name of God in the presence of the Shekinah, the name Shaddai, with their hands. He would bless the people as Yeshua had blessed his disciples before he ascended. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'nihunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. Amen. May the Lord Adonai bless and keep you. May the Lord Adonai shine his face upon you and be gracious to you with divine favor. May the Lord Adonai lift up his countenance upon you and give you perfect peace, and Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace. In the name of Yeshua the Messiah we pray. B'Shem Yeshua. Amen. Amen.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. May the Lord grant you his peace. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yihunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. May the Lord grant you his peace. Yiverecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yaseh lecha shalom.